In this video, we shall see how to set up the environment that is required for the development of an application.
The recommended version of Python for installation of Flask is Python 2.7. So in front of you, I have opened the idle shell of Python 2.7.12, and this is the Python prompt, in front of which if I write any valid Python statement, that will be properly executed. So which means that in this machine Python's 2.7.12 is available. You can also verify this by executing the Python interpreter from the command line. So in this machine, the Python 2.7 c:/Python 2.7 is the installation directory for Python 2.7. So from this command prompt, I will start the Python interpreter just by issuing Python command. You see that the Python prompt appears. Here also I can execute any valid Python statement like this. So which means that Python 2.7 is available in this machine. Next is for the installation of different packages. This Python distribution must have pip utility available. For the Python distributions after Python 2.7.9, pip utility is already present in the Python bundle. So just verify whether this pip is available or not. Otherwise, you may have to install the pip utility by using the getpip.py. How to find out whether it is present or not? Just issue a simple DOS command to search all the occurrences of pip by saying /s. So if I see, this pip.exe is available in the scripts subdirectory of Python 2.7. So it is present. Now that it is present, I have to see whether the virtual environment is present or not. So if I try to install it by using the pip, what happens? Let us see. If I say scripts, because that is the folder in which the pip utility is present, pip install virtual env, what happens? The requirements are already satisfied. That means the virtual environment is already set up in this. You can also verify the presence of virtual environment by running the same search command. There you see inside the scripts, the virtual env.exe is already present. So that prerequisite or requirement is already fulfilled. Now we shall use this virtual env.exe to create a virtual environment. So for that, let me create a new folder. I will call it as Flask env. Let us log into that directory. And now use this virtual env.exe to set up a virtual environment. So where is that virtual environment, virtual env? It is inside this directory vir, and then give the name of the virtual directory or virtual environment that you want to set up. I give the same name, So the virtual environment will now be set up. It is collecting the requirements, setup tools, pip, wheel, etc., and those will be set up inside the Flask env directory inside the Flask env that we have already created. So a folder of this name will be created, and inside which all the requirements will be installed. So the installation is complete. So now that the virtual environment named as Flask env is set up, let us go into that directory and see what all resources have been installed inside that folder. So this is the parent folder in which the virtual environment is set up by the same name, Flask env. This is the virtual env folder. If you expand this, you will find that this all include directory, lib directory, and scripts directory is these folders are created. If you go inside the scripts, this is the all utilities that are required are available in this. There is an activate command batch file, there is a deactivate batch file, and then there is also a local pip also is present. If you want to install some packages inside this virtual environment, you can use this pip. Not you don't have to use the global pip that is available in Python 2.7 original directory. In order to install something in this virtual environment, use this pip. And then there is also a Python interpreter which is available for the local environment or virtual environment. So this is all about the installation of virtual environment, which is the first part of our Flask installation procedure. In the next part, we shall see how to activate this virtual environment and install the Flask package inside that.
So this is the folder in which the virtual environment has been set up. This is the name of the virtual environment directory, Flask env, inside which there is a scripts folder, and inside which there is a activate.bat. So if I say go into this, there is a scripts folder, and there is a this activate.bat. So I have to invoke this to activate the this virtual environment named as Flask env. So I'll go back to the parent folder and then say Flask env scripts and then say activate like this. So you can find that just before the command prompt, the name of the virtual environment is appearing in the brackets. So now we are in the virtual environment from which you can invoke the Python interpreter also. You find that in the scripts folder there is a python.exe also. So if I start this, Python will start in the virtual environment. Like this. So this Python interpreter is now working in the virtual environment called as Flask env. Come out of this and come out of the virtual environment by calling deactivate. So we have come back to the prompt. So this is how in the second part of the virtual environment installation, how to activate, how to start Python interpreter in the virtual environment, and how to deactivate that. This all we have seen. Then we come to the installation of Flask. So first activate the virtual environment by calling the activate batch file and then run the pip utility to install Flask, which is present in the scripts folder. Pip install Flask. All the dependencies and the modules inside the Flask package will now be installed. Lastly, it is saying successfully installed. All the dependencies Jinja and works, Zug, etc. are all installed successfully inside the virtual environment. So the installation is complete. I will now invoke the Python prompt and then I will say import Flask. So now the Flask is already present in our virtual environment. Now that the Flask is imported, we can now go ahead and use the.
In this video, we shall try and write our first Flask application called as Hello World.
So far, we have successfully installed Flask in our Python virtual environment. Now we shall write a simple Hello World application using Flask. So first line is required to import the Flask module into our application. Next is to create a Flask object which takes the constructor of the Flask class takes one argument which is the name of the current module, and that is retrieved by double underscore name under double underscore. Then you have to use the root method of the Flask object. What this root is doing is, root is called as a decorator, which tells the Flask server which is the function which is associated with this URL. So which means that this forward slash given in front of the bracket in the root means that this forward slash is attached to this function. So if I invoke the server and give this forward slash in front of the name of the server, then this function will be executed. So when this script will be run, the app.run function, run method is available to this Flask object, that will be executed, and accordingly whichever path that you mention in the URL, the associated function will be called. So what I am going to do is, I will run this application from the Python prompt. The Python prompt will show me that the server is running, and then we shall open the browser to see the Hello World message that is being printed. So this was the script of the Hello World application. Now we shall start the application. Our virtual environment is in the Flask env directory. So first we have to activate it by saying activate, which is in the scripts folder of the Flask env virtual environment directory. So it will be activated. Then we have to run this script hello.py. Right. So if I press enter, what will happen? The message will be there telling me that the server is running on 127.0.0.0.1. that is the address of the local host. The default port is 5000. So on this the server is running. So if I go to the browser, give this URL, I should be able to see the hello world message being printed. So let us open the browser and give the URL as being displayed there. Now we shall see how the debug support can be enabled in the Flask application. Actually our application is right now running at the given URL. So I will first stop it by pressing Ctrl C. And then enable the debug support by saying debug equal to true. And rerun the application. You see there are certain changes in the output that is being displayed. It says that the debugger is active and it is the application is running on the same URL. Okay. So if you again go back to this localhost :5000 and it will again show you the hello world. So the hello world is displayed. Now what is the effect of this debug is equal to true? If the debug is not set equal to true and if the application is running, while the application is running, if you make any changes to the Python script, then for every change that you may want to make to this Python application, you will have to stop the server, make the changes, restart the server and then open the browser. Now that the debug is true, debug support is enabled, what you can do, while the server is running itself, you can do whatever changes you want. Those changes will be automatically refreshed without you having to stop and restart the server. So that is the advantage of debug. Our application is already running in the debug mode. The debug is set equal to true. Now what I will do, I will make certain changes here. Something like this. And save this. As soon as I save, you see that it is saying detected change in the hello.py script and it is reloading it. Okay, so this is what happens when you enable the debug mode. Now if I go back to the browser and just refresh it, I should be able to see the hello tutorials point instead of hello world. So you don't have to stop the server, make the changes and then again relaunch it. So it has already reloaded the script. I'll just refresh this. There you see the changes have been automatically incorporated. So this is how the debug effect, debug is equal to true, affects the behavior of the server.
In this video, we shall see how we can build the URL dynamically in our Flask application.
In this example, we shall see how to build the URL dynamically using the function called as URL for, which is defined in the Flask module. You also need a function called as redirect. The purpose of the redirect function is to redirect the browser from one URL to the other URL. Only thing is that the URL to be redirected to is to be fetched from or fetched using the URL for function. So coming back to this code, what do we have in this program? First, of course, this is the Flask application object that you have to create. Then we have defined a URL called as /admin, and this URL is bound to a view function called as hello admin. So if after the server is running, you give the URL as localhost 5000/admin, then on the browser you should get this message, hello admin. So this is a fairly simple definition of a URL with the help of the root decorator. Similarly, there is another URL which is defined as /guest, but in front of which there is a variable which is mentioned inside the angular brackets. So as a result, what will happen? If you give the URL as localhost 5000 /guest slash some other strings, let us say MVL. So that MVL will be picked up as the value of this variable which is mentioned in the angular brackets. Here the name of the variable is guest, and that will be passed as a keyword argument to the mapped view function called as hello guest. So when this hello guest function is executed on your browser, you should get a message, hello, this is a placeholder %s, the value of this variable will be substituted here. So hello MVL as guest will be our expected output. Now this is the straightforward way of calling a view function which is associated with the URL. Now what we are doing is we will be dynamically fetching the URL associated with either hello admin or hello guest, depending on what is the value of the name variable which is mentioned in the third URL. So we have a third URL mentioned or defined in this program, /user/name. So in the browser, suppose if the URL given is localhost 5000 /user/admin. Okay, so the admin will be the value of this variable name that will be given to the mapped view function hello user. So the value of the name will be admin. So this statement will be true. So therefore this part will be executed. What does it do? It will fetch the URL for hello admin function, which incidentally is this, and the mapped function is this. So therefore hello admin will be printed. But if on the other hand the URL given is localhost 5000 /user/mvl, so the name variable will become mvl, the argument to the hello user function will become mvl. This condition will not be true, so the else part will be executed. What does it do? It fetches the URL for hello guest. An additional parameter to this hello URL for function is another attribute guest is equal to name, in which case this is the MVL. So what happens? The URL becomes this one, to be the redirected URL will be this, and the associated function is again this. So the value of guest will be provided to this keyword argument. You will get hello MVL as guest. So essentially what you are doing, you are selecting the URL dynamically with the help of the URL for function. So this is the explanation of this code of this Flask application. Now what we will do, we will execute this program, the server will start, and then we will open a browser, give the URL according to this, and then see that in first place the hello admin will be displayed, and then the execution of the hello guest function will be performed. So let us see. So the Python script in which this entire program is written is saved as url building.py. I have executed that program. The server is running. Now we shall go to the browser and give the URL as /localhost 5000 / first we shall see whether just by mentioning admin, the result hello admin and the hello MVL as guest, these outputs will come, and then we will see how the dynamic selection of URL and redirection of the browser to the corresponding function takes place.
So I open the browser and the URL is localhost 5000 admin. As you expected, hello admin will be printed. Then I give a URL as hello guest MVL. So this will become the variable part of the URL given to the guest function, and the output will be hello MVL as guest. This is also as per the expected lines. Now comes the part of the dynamic formation of URL. So if I have to do that, then I write user admin. So this becomes the variable part, will be picked up by the associated view function hello user. Admin name is equal to admin condition is true, so therefore the hello admin output will be displayed as a result of the redirection towards the function associated with this URL. Okay, and then again I will do another URL redirection by saying user MVL. Now the condition will not be true, so the else part will be executed. So it will redirect it towards the hello guest function. That's it. So there you see the use of URL for function allows you to form the URL dynamically, and the browser can be redirected towards any selected view function. Okay.